Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello, hello out there. Really nice to see you. I am Joan of Angels. You're with us today. We're going to be talking about crystal skulls. Neil and I had an amazing opportunity to meet a crystal skull keeper, and we decided it would be fun to share her information with all of you. So, guys, if you're new to the channels, to Neil's channel and my channel, please like, subscribe, and share, because that's how we get our exclusive content out. And I want to tell you a little bit about myself as Joan of Angels. What I do is I help people really remember who they are, why they're here, and I help them connect to that, to their intuition, basically, and to the guidance that they can receive, so you can actually do what you came here to do. And so I'm really happy to share that. And one of the things we've been doing recently is Neil and I have been going live every Tuesday, sharing amazing speakers from Portal to Ascension, speakers that are on the platform or that are co-hosts, so that you can get a closer, intimate view about some of the upcoming shows and events that we're going to have. So I want to introduce Neil right now and let everyone know it's Neil's birthday. That's probably one of the exciting things about him. It's his birthday. He's celebrating in the Yucatan, in Playa del Carmen, and you know him as the founder of Portal to Ascension, which is going worldwide, helping people really master and step into their divinity themselves. So welcome, Neil. I'm always happy to do this with you.
Thanks, Joan. Excited to be here with everybody. This is an impromptu event, even though we planned it out. It's impromptu because we're going live every Tuesday, but we had to really figure out when we were going to do this one about the crystal skull experience that Joan and I had together last week, a week and a half ago or so. Yeah, and so we were going to put it in a regular PTA show every Tuesday, but we thought it needs its own thing. So we're going to be going through that today and showing you an interview and commenting on it and having a lot of fun. I want to make a couple of announcements before we go, but I'll just throw it back to you really quick, Joan. What else do you want to share before I make my announcements, and then we can go right into the interview.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. I want to share, but I think I'll wait till after your announcements, how kind of the visions that I had that really woke me up at 1 or 2 in the morning and said, we have to go there, and the activations that I had. But no, I was going to share a card, number one, and this is the Sacred Travel Earth Power Deck. And I thought it's really interesting because there you are down in the Yucatan, in the Mayan Peninsula, and you're right enmeshed in all of these powerful energies. And that is actually where our crystal skull keeper is from. But I was guided to share this card, and you can think of it as extra special, powerful for your birthday, Neil. But the card is the Tower Mina, and it's the affirmation with it is, I do not resist change. And I know this is for everyone. We do not resist change. Change can be a creative force. I can build upon my strengths. And so that is really specifically for all of us, but really, I think for you, Neil, on your birthday, and because you are undergoing a big change, and I think it's transformative being where you are. So
it definitely is.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to make my announcements, but I'm going to take a detour here and just get some feedback. And the reason why I need some feedback right now is because of my camera and because I'm in the Yucatan and because of the announcement I'm going to make, which is that for the next 3 days, I'm going to be doing a presentation on sound frequency, 2 hours each day. Actually, 2 hours tomorrow, 2 hours the next day, maybe 30 minutes on the third day. But it's going to be the first day is going to be on ancient civilizations and the utilization and awareness in sound. And the next day is going to be on the science of sound and frequency, quantum physics, talking about quantum mechanics, the vibratory world, subatomic level, how we're proving that we're all vibration. And then on the last day, I'm going to have Ariel from Secret Stories on, who I am creating a book with her on sound and vibration. So the whole 3 days really is to promote people submitting their stories to the book so that we can create this book, because I need 25 stories of people's tangible experience with sound. So now my question to you all is, I'm looking at my YouTube video, my phone, I'm looking at it on my computer, and my quality of my video looks very, very bad. And it's extremely pixelated. So I don't know if that's just me or if it's actually the case. So if we can just have a couple of people really quick just jump in and tell me if my resolution is low. And I need to know this because I'm going to go live for the next 3 days, and I really want to make sure I don't cut out or there's any issues. So if you could just really quickly just let us know in the chat room, give me some feedback. How's the quality of the actual video? Is it blurry? Is there low resolution? Okay, Hillary says it's okay. I'll wait
I'm
for another
looking at
person
it
here.
now.
Yeah, you tell me too, John.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it. Content, let's see.
Okay.
I can tell you that that you did freeze up a tiny little bit and started to have the feeling of going in and out, but then it didn't happen. So, I think the truth is you just need to make sure you get as close to fast. Now
Okay,
we're
yeah.
not
So
even
we're
live
getting we're
on
getting
YouTube
both comments here. All right, whatever. So thanks for telling me, everybody. And I also want to say hi to everybody on the podcast because I am actually at 108 episodes on Portal to Ascension Radio, and it's on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, and like 10 other platforms. So if you want to not just get the information that we share here, because I take the audio of a lot of these videos, but then I also curate specific shows for the podcast. Do check us out there. And I have to say hi to everybody on the podcast because usually I just take the audio and I just put it there and I don't acknowledge them. So everybody tuning in on the podcast, thank you so much for being on this show with us. And everybody listening on YouTube, please do check us out, Portal to Ascension Radio too, on all the platforms. While you're in your car, you can just put it in and listen to it. We got some epic awareness with hundreds of different speakers, and I'm at 110 episodes, 108 episodes. So pretty exciting.
That is exciting. And while you're all at it, guys, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, which has some of the stuff I do with Neil and a lot of other speakers. We talk a lot about miracles, how to step into your soul awareness and your purpose. And now we're expanding out to ETs, hybrids, and a walk-in consciousness too.
Yes.
So I can't even find it on my YouTube at this current moment. So I'm not even going to look. All right, guys. Let's talk about how we came to be to talk to ShavatY. Like how did we find her? We found her because Alan sent you a note and said, while you're in the Yucatan, see, Neil's not really on vacation. You think he's on vacation, but he's working really hard. So Alan sent you a note, right, to go and check out this crystal skull keeper.
Yep. So I told Alan that I am going to be in Playa del Carmen, and he goes, well, I have a friend down there who is this crystal skulls keeper. She has a crystal skull. You should go check her out. She's a really nice lady. And I didn't do it during the time I came here the first time around. And now we know that I wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to wait for you to come down here. But then when you came down, I still was not going to go. I was going to wait until this week to really go and see her, right? And then you said to me, no, we need to make this happen. I really want to go check out the crystal skull. So we went there, and I'm in Playa del Carmen right now, probably like only 5 to 10 minute walking distance from her. I'm going to see her again on Friday. But we had a really amazing experience with her. Not only is she a beautiful, gentle, spiritual soul, right? But at the same time, she led us into the story of how she even came across being a crystal skull keeper.
Right. It was really very powerful. So I wasn't even sure I wanted to go because it just sounded like a lot. And then you and I went to see to Chichen Itza, and we had that experience down at the pyramid. And as I was at the pyramid, I had a very, very powerful past life experience. Your aura is weakening and you're getting blurry, Neil, just to make sure we see these comments. But anyway, I had this past life experience as I was walking down towards the pyramid. And then it was like I heard this voice that said, you need to go talk. You need to meet the crystal skull. And it was at that moment, it was like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I was about to text Neil to say, we have to go, because I was called by the skull. So the skulls have this ability to call you, to really put out this kind of contact information. And when you get that call, I would say definitely say yes. So that's what happened to me. And Neil was amenable. And so then we go to see her.
Yeah. So shall we go ahead and get right into the interview?
Yeah, let's start the interview and then we could stop it where we want to chat a bit.
Yep. All right. So we're going to show this. It's 33 minutes and 33 seconds long. And I have to give myself credit for that because I deliberately did that. I stopped it right then. And I was trying to make sure, I was hoping she'd finish the whole story in that long. And she only took another 5 seconds. So we but I had to end it there to get that synchronistic number, you know? So we're going to go ahead and play right now. And we're going to do a little commentary on it as
Yeah,
well.
right.
So let me go ahead and add this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because how you become a crystal skull keeper, you don't go to the store and buy a crystal skull. So very, very potent to know that. Okay.
Yep. All right, let's do it.
So just looking straight at her, it's very different than looking at the side.
It's completely different. And if you look at the back also, because it is just like if you look at AIU, it doesn't look like crystal. It always looks like living, moving water. And AIU is the almost like the most clearest. The Anamitra hedges is the most clearest, so it is very difficult to make good pictures of it. But it's also like the way how the light falls through him is like it's amazing. And all his enclosures that he has have a different purpose, have a different energy, have a different consciousness. Like AIU is from himself, he is like a unity consciousness that holds many different unity consciousness within him, but also from different times, like from past times. Like if people go sit with AIU, it's like immediately he knows you. Immediately he can see like, oh, this little part of consciousness I can just give that. But his own consciousness, like the identity that he is, like the personality that he is, that is coming from the future. He explained me like the end time that we are now starting, at the end of that time when all the creation have been created. He comes from that and he came traveling back to assist us to do the proper steps to get there. So and yeah, it's for me it's just I often speak about consciousness, but for me it's just pure love. It's just so much love.
She definitely called us here.
Oh yes, he does that. Sometimes people are really surprised that they call really shy and they say, yeah, I'm somewhere here in Palenque, and somebody said like, oh, there's a woman with a crystal skull implier, you should go there. Can I come? Because they feel, yeah, you can come.
Yeah. So what's the story on how you acquired the skull?
How I got it? Ooh, that's a long story. Do you have time?
Yeah.
We do.
Okay.
Just share the video with me.
Yeah, well.
Perfect. Like, if for myself, I often have, and I call that clear state of dreaming. Then I know that I'm asleep, but I am traveling fully awake in other dimensions where I have different lives, where I have different experience, and I'm fully present at that moment. And in one of those clear state of dreaming, I was in Egypt at the Gizeh Plateau. And there were many people gathered there. I recognized them as people from this life and from past life, but there were also people that I didn't recognize. But after some years, I got to meet them also. And there was one strange man that tapped me on my shoulder and that said, "Do you want to stay here for 1 month?" And without hesitating, I said immediately, yes. And he took me then underground, in the underground temples. And because I'm clairvoyant and I also do readings sometimes when things are happening, and then the next day I go sit, what was the meaning of this? But my spirit guides, they have given me a certain like a certain image that when something is happening that I'm not ready to fully grasp or understand, that they give me an image, because then I know, okay, I'm not going to look for it, because otherwise I make it too small. Then when it comes, it will come. And that image is always that all my awareness is going to my feet. I can feel my feet on the cold stones. I could hear my feet and I could see my feet. So then I know, okay, something extraordinary is happening now. So it's just my consciousness at that moment is still too small to grasp it. I was there for 1 month. I received a lot of healing, but also a lot of teachings in that time period. When that month was over, I was standing there, I was waiting. I knew it was that month was finished, and that same man came in, but he showed himself in his light love body. He was pure light and pure love that was radiating from him, and I was like my heart was going like this. I was almost like exploding from it was so intense that I at that moment could not see that he was holding something in his hands. And then he was really close in front of me, and at that moment, like I had my hands like that, and he hand over a crystal skull. At that moment, I see the crystal skull, and the skull starts speaking to me. Once again, my child, I will lay myself in your hands. And then whoop, I got out of it. I woke up in my bed. I woke up my husband, and I said, I had a crystal skull in my hand. And he said, that's never going to happen. So he went to sleep. The next day I went to this crystal center where I was working with my colleagues. So I thought, well, with her I can share that. So I was still like so vibrating from the experience. And I said, I had a crystal skull in my hand. And she also said, that's never going to happen. So I thought, okay, that's a sign. It's my experience. I need to keep it for myself. That's it. My life continued. A few months later, there was a gathering in the south of Holland from the Flower of Life, from the Merkaba teachings, and we all three had done the Merkaba practice. So we went, all three of us, we went there. And at that gathering, there are other peoples that had brought their flyers from what they were going to organize. And there was one flyer with two crystal skulls on the front. One was Max and the other one was Shanara. So I see that flyer, I grab the flyer, I go to my husband and my colleague and said, look, I have a crystal skull in my hand. So I think, well, this is confirmation the way how my higher self is communicating with me. But during the day I started like I couldn't let it go, because it was an announcement of the Wolf Song gathering. There was like the peace elders from the North America, they were coming to Holland, and for the first time in history they had decided to bring the crystal skulls to Europe, to reveal the crystal skulls to the public. And it was an event of 3 days. So I went to that girl that had that flyer and I said, well, why do you only have one flyer? It's like a great event. She said, I'm the promoter from the event. I have a whole box, but I could not take the box. I could only take one flyer. So she said, and I told her my experience. She said, maybe the flyer is for you. I said, yeah, maybe it's for me. So I went home. And when I was home the next day, I go into my meditation, and I had a meditation room with a circle with 12 big crystals and one in the middle. And I go sit there and meditate. I close my eyes. Max comes forward and he said, hi, I am Max the Crystal Skull, and I'm going to tell you my story, and I'm going to introduce you to all the crystal skulls. So on a daily basis, he introduced me to many different crystal skulls that showed me their way of creation, that showed me the way how they were used by people. They showed me their purpose, but they also showed me the way how they were starting to be abused by people. And that almost broke my heart. Like, it was so painful, and then I could also see that many got destroyed. Some got taken into other dimensions, some got taken to other solar systems to prevent that they would get damaged, or prevent that they would get abused. And after that, it went on for a few weeks, and then after that it was quiet, and he said, please, my child, come to us, we need healing. And I said, of course, tell me what I need to do. And they said, no. So, and I was just like, I was so nervous, so they didn't give me any information, and I had no clue at all. What am I supposed to do? I have no idea. And I was really nervous because it had touched me so deep in my heart, this pain that the consciousness of many crystal skulls had experienced by the abuse and by the neglect of human consciousness. And I did not want to do that because, but I always, like, I don't know what to do, guide me. And they said, no. So I already had decided I need to go just one day, the last day, and I did know that when crystal skulls are coming together, something is happening. It already happens with one crystal skull. Like skulls are really bringing up hidden stuff, like hidden stuff that is within the shadows, that sometimes people want to hide on purpose, or that they don't know that they are hiding. So when you have an event when there are more crystal skulls coming, that all that stuff is coming up. And that also happened with this Wolfsong gathering. And the days before, there had been a lot of disbalance, a lot of pain that the elders had done to each other, like misunderstandings, but also egos that were coming up. So it was a bad situation. Some already had left. So I came that last day, and I was thinking, okay, I still have the whole day time, because probably they're going to bring the skulls in for a closing ceremony. And I already had said, Max is not here. He pulled himself back. He's not coming. And there were, like, I think it was Shanara, Madre, Infinity, Rainbow, Ichabod, and maybe some else, but I have it somewhere registered. So I was just still thinking, I will have my time and I will do whatever I need to do. But then they said, okay, in the morning, everybody please stand up, because now the crystal skulls are coming in. And then something happened that I need to go stand for that. So I was standing, and I was next to the pathway, and they were coming to walk with the skulls inside, and my body started shaking like this, uncontrollably shaking, and tears were running down my face. And it was just like, I could feel my husband being a little bit embarrassed, like, oh my God. And then I really felt the energy of the skulls, and then what happened is that they put the skulls in one line, and then all the energy, it was gone. And then they said, see, they don't understand, they don't know how to work with us. Because when I have done journeys with different crystal skulls, and then it's always like at the millimeter how they want to stand. Because they want to make a harmonic geometric alignment, and it's not the way how they are on the physical earth, the place, the way how they are connected makes possible if grid lines in the earth or meridians can be connected with galactic meridians. So they are very picky in how they want to be put, and you really need to fully feel that.
Well, let's take a pause right here, Joan, and I'll say a couple things. So I'll just say first. So she's talking about the skulls when they come together. They seem to only work when they're put in a certain geometrical pattern that's connected to some sort of ley line grid on Earth. And if it's not within that pattern, maybe it will do something, but the geometrical pattern is really what helps activate them all together. So that's what she's referring to in that moment right there.
Right. And I've also understand, and other people have mentioned it to me too, that there is supposedly when 13 skulls come together in a circle, that energy then is going to create powerful vibrational forms. So you're right about this coming together. Also, she mentioned the ley lines, the earth ley lines, but also aligned with the galactic ley lines. And she's talking about the skull actually existing in another dimension. We see that container for the skull, that glass, but that skull is limitless, from what I understand.
Yeah, and I don't know if she touched on this yet, but even if she did, it's not really giving anything away. But she did say, she said that this skull was from the future, not an ancient skull. And I
That's
think
right.
she's going to speak about it in a second here, that it was basically like a light beam struck an area of molten lava, if you will, in Brazil. And the combination of earth and the light being manifested the skull. And that's the story, that the being or the beings that are connected to this skull have given her.
Interesting. She also told us. Remember, she told us that this is skull. ShavatY refers to the skull as female, as a she. But then, as I'm listening, I realize no wonder I'm confused because she also refers to the skull as a he. So there is that dichotomy. And the other thing she said that she hasn't touched on yet is that the top of the skull was flat, and there's actually no signs of human intervention on that skull, right? Or human tools that have been on that skull.
Yeah, and she did start out before we even got into this video speaking about how it was androgynous and really has no
No, no
no
gender.
gender at all, and then so people can call it whatever they want, and but it's interesting when you call it by whatever you call it, he or she, it actually shows more about you as the individual than it does about the skull, because the skull is just energy, is pure energy. It doesn't really relate to one, and if anything, the higher consciousness of the skull is definitely channeling an energy that transcends gender, and
Right.
and unites probably the two together.
Right. Perfect. Okay. And
All right,
I
let's
did
continue.
feel the energy when we were touching the skull. And so let's keep going. Then we'll share more.
All right.
So, and there was coming so much sadness from the skulls, like we had so much possibility. So, but I do know that then they started auctioning and painting, like bidding for money. So I was just, they didn't do nothing with the
For
skulls.
what? For painting or?
Painting.
Oh,
They
painting.
did nothing with the skulls.
They did nothing, and I was just like, really, that cannot be true. Like, how is it possible? But I think, okay, just because I had energetically been connected with the skulls, but then if you see a skull in real, it is different. And you don't get the whole concept. You get certain energies when you connect like that. If you see them real, it's like completely different type of extra energy that you get. So I was thinking, okay, I just take my time, I go to each skull and I just do my meditation like that. And that's what I did. And then it was lunch break, and still they had not done nothing with the skulls. And then the people said, okay, it's lunch break now. If people want to come forward to see the skulls, that is now possible, but please don't touch because they're sacred objects. In Holland, I'm pretty small, but so I was thinking, oh my God, all these people are going there. Like I have no chance to come more closer, but I'm like just going to try it. And I come forward, just going to do it with AIU, and I come forward to the first skull like that, and there were no people, and I go like, I go in and I start to make movement with my body and speak a certain language. I had no clue what it was, and then I felt whoop, and I opened my eyes. I said, oh, great, isn't it? And I moved to the second skull, and again, like people made place for me. Again, I did something completely different.
Wow.
And so I did all these 7 skulls, and then I felt like, okay, mission completed. So I wanted to walk away, and then there were still people there at the skulls, and there were people in the tent. It was a big tent. And then they said to me, one thing more, my child. And I have spoken with people that have seen it, because then something happened. It was like I was with my back to the skulls, and I went like this. Like even I came from the floor like that, and I felt here a skull, here, here. And they used my body, and at the front, out of my heart came a very big crystal skull, and then it was like it exploded in little sparks, and they said this was the healing of all the ancient crystal skulls. Thank you, my child.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, so and then I went, I've done it. I went out And then I felt another consciousness of a skull trying to reach to me, but I could not really connect with it. I went home, and I lived in the north of Holland, very remote. And a few weeks later, the phone rang, and it was an English-speaking girl that said, "Hey, hi, I'm Vicky from Australia. I have a crystal skull, and he wants to come to you." So she was traveling around in Holland, and she went to certain places where people started talking about me, and her skull said, "Gotta go find that woman." So I picked her up at the train station, and immediately when I saw her, it was like old sisters from past life that recognize each other. We fell in each other's arms, and it was like really home. And she had a little skull, like Scully, in a little bag. She said, "Here, Scully, he's for you this weekend. You can do whatever you want to do with him." So we exchanged a lot of information. We did lots of different things. I could tell her many things about which portals her skull was using. And at the end of that weekend, she said to me, like, "Well, you know, ShavatY, you know that you are also a crystal skull keeper, but your skull is not here yet." And I said, "No." I said, "I don't need that. You know, I've never asked for that." I said, "No." And she said, "No." So it was never my wish or never my idea, but the next day when I went into meditation, I went to a certain level in my consciousness where I had to give permission and take all the responsibility that comes with it to be a crystal skull keeper. And I was like, "Look, that's kind of surprise." But I thought, "Oh, okay." So that went on for weeks and weeks, and I came to certain levels in my consciousness that I had not reached before. So it awoke my consciousness also more until I really could not reach it anymore, and it continued until it stopped at a certain moment. So I was like, "Okay, that's it." And I lived my normal daily life. I was never looking for skulls. I was never really thinking about it. And then the place where we lived, we had in our garden, we had a vortex. And very often I was being asked to go stand in that vortex to anchor certain energies. And one time I was walking past that vortex, and I thought, "I see a crystal skull." But I'm thinking, now I have done too much of that crystal skull stuff. Now I'm starting to imagine it. So I just let it be. And my husband was the whole week away from home. And when he came home, and he's very clairvoyant, so I said, "Can you go have a look in the vortex?" So he goes look, and he comes back, and he said, "No, I see a crystal skull." So I'm like, "Is it real?" Wow. So I go out, and I go into that vortex. I could pick it up, I could feel the weight, and I'm thinking, "Wow, this is amazing." And I'm stepping out, and it disappears. And at that moment, he started talking to me, and he said, "I don't have the ability to manifest myself at this moment. You have done all the spiritual mumbo-jumbo stuff, now act 3D. And I knew immediately what I had to do, because all the crystals that I had in my meditation room, which that is one of it, we had it from one specific place. And there was a man that had a crystal gallery. He was totally not spiritual, but from his heart he knew which crystal was for which person. So I called him, and I said, "Oh, Jose, I've been somewhere where I've seen people that have crystal skulls, and I'm just wondering, how do you get a crystal skull?" And he said, "I don't want anything to do with that. It's not my thing." I said, "Oh, okay, you're just, asking." So I think, no, that was not it. A few months later, this moment of me having this clear state of dreaming, and the moment that AIU really physically came to me was about 2 years' time. That was all preparation. So then a few months later, he called me and he said, "Hey ShavatY, I'm in Brazil and I have 3 crystal skulls. You can just pick one." but he was not spiritual, and I asked him, can you send a picture, because I wanted to feel the energy, but I could not tell that to him.
Right.
And he got a little bit agitated. He said, like, listen, I don't want to have nothing to do with crystal skulls. I'm not talking about it. People are offering them, and I think of you. And I said, well, I could not feel nothing. So I said, well, I was just curious. Like, I'm sorry, but thank you very much.
Right.
But it was my last test if I could find a proper one. Like, there was no movement of energy. Then a few weeks later.
All right, gonna take a little pause here. I'll let you go first, Joan.
Wow, I found that so profound. The story of how basically the crystal skull chose her and the training that she underwent in order to feel the energy of the skull. So I'm just mesmerized. It's like I'm hearing it again for the first time.
Yeah, and just to recap what she's saying here is basically she felt a connection to crystal skulls. She went to a crystal skulls event in the Netherlands. She had this convulsion and experience in front of the crystal skull that embarrassed her husband. Was like, what is she doing? You know, even though he was into this consciousness and everything. Went to the skulls and channeled some type of words and stuff that helped it. All of a sudden heard a voice. The voice said that thank you for helping with the healing process, right? And then she I'm going to summarize the next because I don't know the timeline of it, but it might have happened before or after. She had a flyer in her hand for crystal skulls. Actually, it was before. It was for that event, I believe. And she had a download that she's going to get a crystal skull, and she thought it was just a flyer. She didn't think it was like it was anything. Then she went through all of her experiences in life, kind of forgot about it, right? And then one day she's in the yard, and all of a sudden, in this one area, she felt this energy, and it felt like a crystal skull. She could hold it, and she was tripping out, and she didn't believe herself. So she told her husband when he got home, "Can you go into the yard to that area where the vortex area and tell me what you see there and feel there?" And he goes, "Well, there's a crystal skull there." And she goes, "What? Like, you serious?" Like, so that was kind of where we're at, I believe. And then let me see where we're at right now, just so because I want to catch you up to what's going on. I'm summarizing this for you guys. Okay, so let's just hear this real quick.
It was like I had a dream in the night of Scully, that crystal skull that was for a weekend. The next morning, Vicky, who is the keeper, she called me, and I said, "Oh, what a synchronicity."
Okay, so during that whole time, she ended up linking up with someone else who had a skull and basically gave it to her to take care of. And what little did she know is that she was basically in training, getting ready for having the skull. And then at one point, she was given the download that it's time to get 3D about it. You've done a lot of energetic work. Now it's time to get 3D about manifesting that skull. And, you meaning taking action to make sure it comes into your life. She didn't know how this was going to happen. And that's where we're at right now. Am I on point?
You are on point. We want to add the final part was that of her colleague who was down in South America found 3 crystal skulls and called her to see if she wanted those skulls. And I found this really amazing. When she tuned in, she couldn't feel any energy coming from the skulls. And so she passed them up and said no. And that was a test for her on whether or not she was really going to be aligned with that frequency of the skull. So I found that pretty fascinating as well. Because sometimes you think, okay, I'm ready for a skull, and then you get a phone call, and then you're going to try to make yourself match one of those skulls. And she didn't. Yeah. She knew it wasn't for her. So we have that.
All right. So continuing here.
You have. And she said, yeah, I feel today is a very special day. I said, yeah, I feel also today is a very special day. So, and then the phone rang, and when the phone rang, it was already like, my heart was already like vroom, 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 going like that. And I pick up the phone, and it was the same man, like you say, and he said, Roy, my business partner, he's in Brazil. And I was like, almost like this, and I could not hear properly. I could hear like in my head, and my heart was like this. And he said, and he has a crystal skull. And I said, bring him over, like that. I said, that's the one. And he said, like, you don't want to have a picture? He said, like, no, no, no. So I said, this the one, it's the one. But, and then I put down the phone and I was like, I really needed to have some time to come back to myself again.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, what have I done? So then I called him back and I said, well, what is that going to cost?
Yeah.
So, and he said a certain amount, and we had a very old house from 100 years old, and we had decided, let's just start saving some money to do some remodeling on the house.
Right.
It was exactly on the penny, that amount of money what we had saved. So I said, oh, I need to talk with my husband.
Wow.
So when he came home, I said, like,
Just want to drill that home one more time. There is that the skull cost some money. She had the person that got it in Brazil. They weren't even spiritual, even into this, but they had known that she had mentioned that she wanted it, and then he actually came across it. Some indigenous people had this skull, and they were like told him that they were waiting for him. I don't know if she said that part yet, and he's not even like into the New Age or consciousness or spirituality or anything, and so gave her a call and said, "Okay, there's a skull here for you. Do you want it?" And then she found out how much it cost, and it was the exact amount that they had been saving for the, what was it, an addition on the house. Like, is that right?
That's exactly what she did say, yes. And also, she knew even before she picked up the phone that day, okay, that something was about to happen, and she recognized that that was her skull. So this is really tangible vibrational experience to actually know. She actually knew it was her skull. So very excited about that.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
you know, this happened, this skull, and it is that, like that. And he put me on a chair, and he stands in front of me, and he said, "Are you really 100% sure that you are supposed to be a crystal skull keeper?" And he's very tall, and I was, "Yes." He said, "Are you really sure that this is the crystal skull that wants to be with you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then we're going to do it."
Wow.
So we called, and I said, "Well, it's totally okay." And then a few months later, or like 6 weeks later, I was calling him, and I said, "Oh, like, well, where is that skull? And it takes so long time." And he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I've lost him." And I said, "You've lost him?" And at that time, I had him on the phone, and I could AIU, but I didn't have that name yet, speaking to me, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm working here. When I'm ready, I'm coming home." So I said, "Well, if you find him, just let me know."
Yeah.
It was a little bit weird, but I did not know anything else to say. But what happened, they had 3 containers shipped coming from Brazil, and they had to be changed on airplane somewhere in an airport in the US. And 3 containers came out of one plane, and just 2 went back. Because that one container that AIU was in, he had made that invisible. Mm-hmm. Because he has the ability to make himself and one time when I was telling this story in a bus with German people, and I had never had that experience of being invisible, the people started screaming, and they said, "We saw that today, we saw that." Because I was walking in Chichen Itza after a ceremony, and I said, "I have to go somewhere there, just follow me, and then I come with you in the bus." And I was going somewhere where it was like no trespassing, and there were 2 soldiers with guns. I smiled to the one, I smiled to the other one, and I'm walking and I'm crossing. So, and they didn't prevent me. The people wanted to follow me, and they said, no, that's forbidden. And they said, "But we're with her." And they look and they said, "There's nobody there." So on certain levels, he then has the ability to become invisible. Mm-hmm. So he has been for a couple of weeks invisible there on the airport until he was done, and then whoop, the container was visible again, and then he came to Holland. So when it was time for me to go pick him up, I asked my husband, like, please distract Jose a little bit when he comes with the skull, because I don't know how I'm going to respond, because I had this the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he had him like really nice under a cloth when he came in, and I had no idea how he would look like in real. So then when he took the cloth off, I was just like, my heart was like like that, and I said like, does spirit give me something of such beauty to work with? And then I was like, cleaning, because I was thinking you can see anything on it. Like I was just like, my heart was just like so deeply touched by seeing him really for real. And I was
Wow.
thinking so beautiful. And then Jose told me how his business partner Roy had found this skull. Like he was already on that fair in Rio de Janeiro, and at the moment that he decided, I'm not going into that room, a strange man tapped him on the shoulder and said, in that room are two Indians, and underneath the table they have a box with a crystal skull, and I need to tell you that.
Just real quick, the story I gave you before, I guess I gave you more information than we had caught up to. So, just to give clarity here, the ending of the story that I gave you, which was the first story that where we stopped the last time, was the first time the skull came in, and that the one that she did not get. This is the second time, when the business partner of the individual that owned the crystal store near her came across this skull, and then he was in Brazil and was invited into a room, or told by someone to go into this room back there, and there was indigenous people that were basically saying that we're waiting for you, and they're the ones that had the skull, and that's when they contacted her to see if she wanted to get it.
He turns around and there was nobody, like the man was disappeared. This is also a businessman, not spiritual at all.
Right.
So he goes in there, he finds the two Indians, and he said, somebody is sending me because he said that you have a crystal skull. Yes, we're waiting for you. So he showed it. So he saw the skull. He calls his business partner in Holland. That business partner calls me.
Wow.
Like I say, yes. But they did not have sufficient money anymore because they already had spent money. A strange person gave the money that he could buy it. And then this part of the story, I'm not quite sure if it was from that fair going to the hotel or from the hotel going to the airport. But when he was loading his stuff in the car, like the skull was already in the car, and when he came back, the car was stolen. And this is a non-spiritual man. Usually you immediately go call the police. He did not do that. He felt, I need to go walk. So he started walking a few blocks, and he found the car with the doors open and the key in the ignition, and they disappeared.
Wow.
So, and that's how AIU came to me. And then many years later, I met somebody who already for 20 years had been looking for this skull, and he had found him in the jungle. Like AIU was in the jungle with an Indian family, and he wanted to have him. He wanted to give money, and he said, no, he's not for you. So he said, I want to give you money to make another one like this. No, never speak about that, never do that, never. So years later, I met this man, and I had AIU in a box, and I opened him, and he turned completely pale, and he said, you have him? And then he said, like, I had seen this skull 20 years ago, and I wanted to have him, but I could not get him. So, and this is how we came together. And at the moment when I wanted to go sit with AIU, usually when I have like crystals, I clear them from the energy of people, so I wanted to do that. And immediately he said, no, don't do that. I show you how I've been created. So he showed me two different things. He showed like a beam of light of Father God traveling through the universe, and the love of the Mother Earth, of her mountains in south of Brazil that opened herself, and that like that light found each other, and in this love connection, like the skull, the crystal emerged up to the surface like that, like this unification of sacred love. And then he showed me another image of the man that made him, and that was a simple craftsman, but he was overshined by a past life that he had in Atlantis, that he also had created skulls, but that he sang them into creation. But now he was like being called to go find a crystal and to carve a beautiful skull. And he and this man, he also told me that other story, that was the same like what I had received. Like the first skull, he was not satisfied about it, he destroyed it. The second one was not satisfied about it, destroyed it. And the third one, that was AIU.
Wow, what a birth.
And then I was just like, go sit with AIU like on a daily basis, because I thought, yeah, I can communicate with crystals. So I thought, now I'm going to communicate with AIU. Nothing worked what I knew. I had been sitting for weeks. I had been sitting in front of him, like waiting, like I tried everything what I knew, and I was giving like schooling to people how to communicate with crystals and how to be crystal healers. Nothing of that worked. Like weeks and weeks, like fully blank. But what happened was that AIU on other dimensional levels, he was creating connection lines with my consciousness until a certain moment. And then he started talking to me and he said, I need help to incarnate. It was as if his consciousness was still floating here a little bit, and he guided me to do for 1 month to sing the tone of A. So I was in my meditation room and I was like, A. I do it now a little bit short, but then overtones started coming. It was just like this. I was thinking, this is not my voice. And then the other month it was I. The third month it was ooh. And then the fourth month, silence. And then after that month of silence, he said, I am here, I am AIU.
Wow. Wow. That's just so profound, how the skull itself trained her to communicate. And also the power of sound and vibration for this communication, I find really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Is the video still going, or was that over?
I don't know. Let's see. And then I want to hear your experience when we put our foreheads
And
together.
that was the beginning of many adventures.
How long ago was this?
It's more than 25 years ago now.
So you had seen yourself years ago with the skulls. And that was a whole process, a couple of years until you were ready to be a crystal skull keeper.
Actually,
yeah, that was it.
Let's take it off of here. Wow. Okay. So what did you feel? Well, first of all, I just want to comment on something. So the crystal skull obviously was meant to come to her and not that other guy, which I think is important to know, that there's a soul attraction, and you know, both of them knew that they couldn't come. But so I don't know about you, but I put my forehead to the skull, and I was hoping to have this aha moment and thinking the skull is going to download all this information. But that didn't quite happen. What happened for me was I went home and I was laying in bed and I started to have these visions, and I guess I was dreaming, and the skull said to me that I needed to do those tones. Of which I had and that's when I came to you the next day and asked you to teach me how to do that toning, because the implication I got from the skulls was that if I would do this toning for at least a month, I would begin to be connected to the skull and start to feel energy of it. And in fact, when I wrote to ShavatY and I told her that, she said that many people have expressed that the skull has told them to tone and that they've had miracles as a result of that. So that was my experience, and I'm hoping you do that toning for us.
Yeah. So what was the name of the skull is AIU, and I'll do the chant in a second, but AIU. And so I'm a extremely healthy skeptic, I would say. And because of that, I don't like just say, "Oh yeah, I'm feeling it." I'm really aware of whether I'm actually feeling something or not, and I'm more likely to doubt a feeling just because of the skeptic in me before I'm able to say, "Whoa," you know. So with that being said, I actually felt something, right? So after we were done there, I stood up, went next to it, we did our heads on it. I was standing up, right opposite where the camera was. Okay. And Joan was still sitting there. She was still on the other side. And I turned the skull and it was just facing me and I was just looking at it. And then I was feeling like this knot in my chest after a couple of minutes, like a really heavy knot. And I felt like, and it just kind of was expanding. And I was like, whoa, this is really weird. And I was like, in that moment, I actually felt like I want to be over with this and just go home. I need to go to sleep or something or lay down. And it was, and then it felt, first of all, the skull was just facing me and it felt like it was piercing me. And then I was feeling that there, like something was going on. And so I moved the skull away from me facing her and it stopped, So there was definitely an energy there. And as she said, that a lot of people, it actually manifests in experiences later. And there's just a frequency to it. Now I have some notes on it, but go ahead. You share some more, and I want to add some things to what we experienced and other things that she told us as well.
Okay, great. So yeah, I felt it was an activating experience, but when I had seen Max at another conference, and I didn't get to meet with Max, but I'm walking down the hallway, and Max is on a table, and I hear this voice that says, "Come talk to me. I want to talk to you."
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally a voice in my head. So I was expecting a voice in my head, let's put it that way. But I felt like it was really part of the vision that had drawn me there. And I have been practicing these tones every day at this point. So what else do you want to share?
All right. So firstly, synchronistically enough, we just started creating the Crystal Skulls conference that we're doing at the third quarter of next year. Well, that's how far ahead we're planning the future.
September.
Yeah, in September of next year. And now she's going to be a speaker on it. But we got to see a crystal skull like the next day. Like, how synchronistic was that, right? And a lot of information on skulls that I completely didn't realize actually was manifested from this experience. First of all, something I already had heard of before is that, a lot of these skulls were actually taken off planet and out of the solar system because they would just be abused on Earth. So let's just say Atlantean skulls or wherever. And we've heard of the 13 crystal skulls. Indiana Jones made it very popular. But from her research and others, there were actually multiple civilizations that had 13 skulls each. Okay.
Yeah,
there wasn't just 13 skulls. Yeah, there wasn't just 13 skulls all over the planet. There was a Mongolian ancient civilization at 13. There was a Atlantean one that had their own 13. There's a Lemurian one that had their own 13. A lot of civilizations, even ones that coexisted, had their own 13 skulls, whether it was manifested through divine right. Maybe they created it and crafted it themselves and downloaded the consciousness on it. But when I heard about all the skulls for so many years, for like a decade now, I've known about them, right? Over that even. I always thought they were all ancient skulls. And lo and behold, maybe only one of them can actually be physically tracked to antiquity. Some of the others could be, because like this one, for example, the indigenous people had it. They were waiting for someone to get it. There was no evidence on how it was created. But she also came across, I don't know what she said, called him an engineer or sculptor or something, who took a look at the skull and said, I just want you to know there is no way humanly possible that this can be created. And hers is one of the only, I think there's another one, but this is the only one that has no machine marks.
And a flat top. And
Yeah.
apparently that flat top is extremely unusual. And just to answer the question, the conference is an online conference, and it's actually going to be on September 3rd. I have that date already in my head, 2022. And we're hoping to have some major skulls there. And so what I think our people will experience is an activation. I think that's what the experience for me was, that I feel like I've been awakened, and now I feel connected to the jungle completely. And didn't you
Right.
say your energy changed? You went from being exhausted
Yeah,
to
to
like
being
wide
awake.
awake.
Yeah. And let me just answer John's question there. Like, what happened was a journey that took years of her even talking and communing with the conscious of the skull, and then her training for it, not even knowing she was training, and then letting go of the need to have a skull before it even manifested. So you said, can you just purchase one and have this energy? You can purchase one, put your own intent in it, whether a consciousness, an extraterrestrial, or something is going to be in it or not, who knows? But this whole thing was the journey. And what happens, as Alan said, crystal skull keepers are some of the most interesting people in the world. That was his text to me, right? Is that there is some sort of relationship going on with this consciousness that eventually manifests in their life. And a lot of them are people that don't want to have a skull. It just happens, you know? So it's not like I need a skull, I need to have it. And some people have had that energy and have come to see the skull right here in Plata Carmen with her, and they wanted to keep it, and they wanted their own skull, and had that kind of arrogance about it. And those in situations, experiences don't create it. You need to really not even want it, and needs to want you. And that's basically what her story is. And even though there are a lot of ancient skulls, what's happening now in the story with her skull is that AIU is actually a consciousness from the future that manifested down through light, and then, out of the bowels of the earth, the skull manifested itself, and the consciousness got installed in there, and she was communing with it for many years before she actually saw it in physical reality. And she, at one point, she didn't even think that she was going to actually see it,
Good.
and actually have one. Yeah.
Very fascinating, Neil. Yes, and because it told her she knew ahead of time that the skull was coming to her, and I think that that's an awareness we all need to know. But I do know that the people do purchase crystal skulls. You can purchase crystal skulls, and it has to do with your intention, who's made it.
Exactly.
And also, the Crystal Skull Conference I went to in 2010, many people brought their own crystal skulls there to sit on the stage with all the other crystal skulls, because they were that's how these crystal skulls get trained, and they get educated by a higher consciousness. So that is possible.
Yeah. And no, John, your question is perfectly on point, because it is like, and I feel that you can get a skull and you can do your meditations and even call in energies and physically put it in there, and that's not even spiritually like new age anymore. That's science.
Right.
Why do they use crystals for computers? Why do they use them for microwaves? Quartz crystal is such a, even what is it, the Vogel crystal one, right? He was actually created the crystal with the equations of the pyramid of Giza, right, and the Giza plateau. And he was actually the one that assisted IBM in creating their first crystal technology in order to use for computers. So even the crystal wand that we're using in consciousness, in this spiritual healing and all that, comes from someone that was actually already aware of that when they created it for computers. So being able to store information on crystals, it happens, right? So even if you kept it by your bed, your brain is literally emanating frequencies all the time. You're programming the crystal with your own intention and consciousness, right? So it makes sense. You can put it out in the sun. You can put it out on Mars and have that frequency, leave it on Mars for 100 years and then try to download some awareness from it. You know what I mean? It will absorb whatever you put into it, is my personal take on it.
Very, very interesting. Well, I have these I should have brought them with me, 2 tiny little crystal skulls, and I've been sleeping with them every night. Okay. And I see Mark says same thing. I brought my crystal skull. So when we have this crystal skull conference, make sure your crystal skull is in the room, kind of just like I bring Avon to the room. And Avon, it downloads to me the same way the crystal skull does. So do you want to share those tones? Because I want everyone to be able to leave here with being able to do these tones.
All right, yeah. And I feel my mic doesn't pick up the low sounds, but Joan said that it picks it up, so you'll get as much as you can from this. But Ellen, this is really awesome segue into my next 3 days when I'm doing sound awareness, because that's just how it works. We don't even try to do it at this point. It just happens.
We didn't try to do it synchronistically, but I was just
Yeah.
thinking, oh my God, he's got his 3 days of sound.
Yeah.
So
And
guys, take that class.
we're going to be doing some chanting over the next 3 days as well. So tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific, the next day at 2 o'clock Pacific, the next day at 10 a.m. Pacific, 2 hours, 30 minutes respectively. And we're going to be talking about sound frequency and vocal toning, and so this is the sound of the name of this skull. And it is through vocal tones, because it's all frequency, all vibration. And it just makes sense that the energetic signature of this being, energetic signatures of many beings, I would say, from other dimensions, are sounds, are like frequencies. They don't even really have words. So
right,
here we go.
They don't even have a body like this crystal skull. It's deceiving to think that the crystal skull is just that head, because it's not. All right.
All right, here we go. One more time. Thank God it's not like Beetlejuice, huh?
Oh my God, I've been hearing it. So, guys, Neil taught that to me the next night. We were sitting over kava. It was my first experience having a kava drink. He thought it would relax me. And the thing I wanted to do was learn how to tone. So I'm going to show up in your event tomorrow. I think that these are the sacred tones that connect you to your spirit, to source, and help you bring in information for you.
Yeah, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about this, but here's a little tidbit of awareness that we'll go into deeper tomorrow, is that, did you know that vowels, like the sounds like A, E, I, O, U, right, and just say out the sounds, were actually not in language when we first started doing written language this time around, right? Because cycles of time occurs this time around. So maybe every time. And the reason for that is the vowels were considered very sacred symbols. The sacred sounds were only needed when we devolved in consciousness. As we began to devolve in consciousness even more and more into the darker ages, then all of a sudden we see ancient cultures implementing the sounds of vowels. For example, the word Ankh. We all probably know what the Ankh is. It's an Egyptian symbol, kind of looks like the cross, has the circle on top, represents the masculine, feminine, connects to our sexual energy. Well, did you know that A was silent in pre-dynastic Egypt? It was actually Nkh. They didn't even pronounce the A because it was too sacred. When the A became a part of language and it became Ankh, was a time where we were devolving from one cycle, one yuga cycle, into the next. So they put it there. Another example is in Egypt. Egypt is a name that was given by the Greeks to Egypt. I wish we could call it what it originally was, the land of Kemet, Kemet. But the E was silent in ancient Egypt, in the pre-dynastic Egypt, let's say goes back at least 13,000 years. And it was actually KMT, Kumt. They did not say the E's. All of these sounds were implemented in language later. Go across the entire planet. Look at ancient Sanskrit. Ancient Sanskrit was actually not the common language between the whole of the culture. Sanskrit was the actual wording and lingo used only for spiritual practices. Listen to the sounds of ancient Sanskrit and listen to the vowels that were put in there when we were devolving in consciousness. And I'll give you another example right here. And hear the vowel sounds and how they're emphasized. Even the Maya language, where I'm at right now, the Maya Peninsula, is actually almost all like hard-hitting vowels. Like it's very much like Sanskrit. So check this out, right? Om Bhuvu, Om Bhu Bhava Swaha Tatravitar Vareniyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Na Prachoteya Ta Om Bhur Bhava Swaha Tatsaravitar Vareniyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Na Prachoteya. So you hear those vowels?
Yes.
You know?
Oh my God, that's so empowering.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that deeper tomorrow.
Oh, good, good, good. And you know, in the Jewish religion, the Torah has no vowels in it. So when you get up and you have to read that, there's no vowels in the Torah either. So I found that very fascinating for what
Trippy,
you're
huh?
sharing. And Neil, that was really trippy to have you chanting. And if you're going to do chanting tomorrow, what time? Tell us again, what time is this event?
3 p.m. Pacific is the time, and then 2 p.m. the next day. And to answer your question, John, I was raised Hindu, but I never really had any beliefs about anything. And even in Hinduism, like I was raised celebrating Christmas because I was born and raised in England, one, and you know, it's a common cultural thing there. And two, most Hindus celebrate Christmas because they actually don't disagree with the life of Jesus. A lot of them believe Jesus actually existed because the Hindu text doesn't say we're the only way. The Hindu text says that all religions existed because they were meant to be for the specific people at the specific time it came about. So if you're into anything, if you really understand Hinduism, you understand that there is no religion that might not have been legit. Everything probably came from some original source. I'll add that with a little caveat because of all the traumas that India and Pakistan have had with each other. They would probably say every religion exists except for Islam. because of like all the freaking traumas that they've all experienced. So it's like what Hinduism has become is very blind faith. There's a lot of truth to the text, and this is why I really like Hindu texts and Vedic texts, and which is why all these spiritual people that don't even really know about the history of Hinduism still chant mantras because there's a lot of truth and vibration to it. However, as we devolved in consciousness, it became from something so pure to ritualistic, like every other religion. It became contractual. What happens with contractualness? Basically, I do this, this, and this, and God will give me this. That's what it became. And as it became that, it stopped becoming about the original source and the intention. And then it became about just blind faith, which is almost every single religion in the world right now. So there's a lot of truths to this text. But unfortunately, 99% of the people that follow it don't really look into the truth or research it. They just do it based on contractual connection to God, if that makes any sense.
And whatever the texts and the teachings and the ritual that they've been told to keep, because honestly, Rich, to me, but this is a whole other discussion. Religion is actually giving up. It's a loss of control because you're believing this dogma that's coming from the outside. Whereas through crystals, through the skulls, through your own connection to source, you become spiritual in a direct connection. So that's been my way for the last few years, many years, actually. Yeah. Well, Neil, this has been very, very fascinating. And I think everyone's had some really great comments for all of us. And so next week, guys, we're not going to be on our Tuesday show. I do have a show with a wonderful astrologer next Tuesday, but then we come back then on November 30th with Sheila, and we're going to be talking to Alan. And we're going to be talking again about hybrids, walk-ins, and starseeds, right? And what are those signs? How to cope with that? How to step into that energy of it? How to connect? So it's all very exciting stuff coming up.
A lot of amazing stuff coming up. And just to say one more time, tomorrow, the next day, and the next day, not only am I doing my 3 shows that are going to be live, which is pretty cool because I am going live on the PortalToAscension channel almost every single day of this
Every
week,
day.
which is pretty freaking awesome. And we have our pre-records that are going. We had Adam Apollo earlier today. We have Phil Gruber tomorrow. We have a bunch of stuff. So we're basically going live twice a day. But tune in tomorrow, everybody. And if you're watching this later, go back in time and tune in. And we will be here at 3 p.m. Tomorrow Pacific, 2 p.m. the next day. And let's delve deep into the realm of sound and vibration and not only find out the science behind it all, how the ancients used it, but also discover tools that we can implement in our own lives to empower ourselves in this now.
Wow, I think that's really fascinating. And by the way, you've inspired me to have something uploaded on my YouTube every day. So I'm there through Saturday, through Sunday, actually, just really going through material I've never released either. So you've been inspiring me a lot, Neil. I love working with you. This is actually not work. That's a misnomer. It's more fun than I've had in years, just helping to bring some of these wisdom out, these ascension tools. So there you have it, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share to Neil's channel, my channel. Come visit me at joanofangels.com. You can pick up our free ebook and find out about some of the ways you can step into your own soul awakening consciousness. Right?
Yep, exactly. All right, everybody. I guess this is it. So thank you for being with us, and everybody on the podcast, thank you for tuning in. And everybody who's not on the podcast, check out PortalToAscension Radio on all the streaming podcast platforms, and help us grow that as well. We want to really get that out to a lot more people. So love you all.
I love it. Love you.
Thanks,
Happy birthday, Neil, and
thank
blessings
you.
to all of you out there. All right, we'll see you soon.